Hello and welcome to episode 12 of my playthrough of DireWolf20's 1.18 mod pack. Today, I've actually got a plan. I've got somewhat of a plan. Before, I've been kind of like flying by the seat of my pants with this hex and going through that. But I spent some time, I did some looking, there is something I want to try out here. And I spent some time off camera kind of figuring out kind of how it works. But in this mod, apparently, there's there's items, as it says, that does casting. So there is a way that you can infuse items with the spells that we've been doing, so like all these drawings and stuff. There is a way that we can just, instead of having to sit here and then do, obviously, like, have to do the symbols for me and then my position and then where I'm looking and then going for, and then seeing the block that I'm looking at, it like doing all these things. Instead of having to write all these things down, I can actually just do an item that by pressing right click will do that entire spell for us. So we're going to be playing around with that. After doing some quick reading, I think you can see here in the casting items, there are 3 types of magic items. There are ciphers, trinkets, and artifacts. Essentially, the way that they work is that it's obviously tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I think in here it says somewhere that... here you go. Each item has its own quirks, right? Ciphers are fragile, destroyed after the internal media reserves are gone, cannot be recharged. Trinkets can be cast as much as the holder likes, as long as there is enough media left, but becomes useless afterwards until recharged. Artifacts are most powerful, blah blah blah. They'll continue to do casting, I'm pretty sure, if you still have enough amethyst in your inventory. So we are going to go make, because I don't really want to spend a charged amethyst and a music disc, because I'm pretty sure we have one music disc laying around. Yeah, we only have the one, and I don't really want to spend it on an item like that. So we're going to go ahead and make the middle here, which is a trinket, which is fine, realistically. And these things are kind of cool, right? So when you craft them, if we go back to, we have to go patterns. I think there's over here. What was I saying? Yeah, when you craft them, they kind of say like, let's just do this just so I can show you. I just need iron. I need to grab a block out. Bang. I think it's just an amethyst shard, which we have. Beautiful. This is just like useless, right? We can craft the item, that's all well and good, but that's not where the cost is involved. Now that I think of it as well, I am probably going to need some more shards after I've been playing around with these. Not many more, but just a few. We'll do like, I don't know, let's say like that many, however that ends up being. Okay. And we can read the book. So the item is kind of useless until we... I forget what the word would be. But you kind of have to infuse it with a spell, essentially. Which is... You can think of a spell as like the phrases that we were going through before in this section, right? So you have your basic spells like Explosion and Fireball and things like that, which require these things. But we can look at crafting the casting items. Here we go. These 3 spells that each create an item that casts a hex are required to hold an empty item in my offhand and require 2 things. The list of patterns to be cast, and an entity representing a drop stack of amethyst to form the item's battery. Right, so you can see here, these are the patterns obviously to build the trinket and the artifact and things like that, but making the actual thing costs amethyst, as well as the dropped amethyst that you do, so like dropping the stack on the ground. I need to turn that magnet off if we're going to do this. Is actually considered the battery for the trinket itself. And I say battery being like everything that we cast consumes, like all of these things consume either amethyst shards or amethyst dust or whatever we have in the inventory. They don't do blocks, which is whatever, that's fine. So you kind of craft it with a drop stack, and then you define that stack as the battery. So it'll use that internal thing, and then once it runs out of that, it will require you to recharge it. But like I said, I've sat around and I kind of thought about it. I think we're going to make just one of these that does a big old explosion, because it's super easy to do explosion. I tried in my testing world to do the overgrow, to get it, to encourage a plant or sapling to grow the target position as if bone meal, so like bone meal in the ground. I couldn't get it to work on plants themselves, but I did get it to work on grass. But I feel like that's just kind of a lame spell, just to show you it's like, hey look, we can grow tall grass whenever we want, which I don't like tall grass. As you can see, this whole entire area is free of tall grass, so I don't have to deal with it. So I figured, what's the next coolest thing that we can do, so I can kind of show off this this, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, this this part of the mod. My brain is not working apparently at the moment, but I was thinking we'll make an item that does a big old explosion whenever we right click with the trinket. So first of all, we're going to need the trinket in our right hand. We're going to go over here and drop a stack of amethyst. We're going to look at it, and we need to define, because if we look here at crafting casting items, right, remember we can look at this here and it tells you what you need for it to happen. We're going to need the entity, which is going to be the stack of amethyst, and then a list of patterns. Oh, actually I should show you how the list of patterns works as well. Right, because obviously if I sat here and then input, it'll input a list, right? There, that, so that's the direction that I'm looking at, and then we're going to take those two coordinates and turn it into a block, and then we need to do a number, which will be, oops, it won't be that, it'll be that, and then we do the explosion symbol. Oh, I messed it up, but you get the idea, right? Doing that, I get to the end of it, and then the spell itself is cast. So there needs to be a way that I can input all of this list into the wand, right? So I can actually make the trinket without actually casting it, and we can do that by doing patterns as iotas, right? So we need to import a pattern as one of those little things in the stack using these things, using I guess these signs, right? Consideration is one, is interesting, right? So to use consideration, I draw this, and then one other pattern. So this will import one pattern as a thing to the stack without it being cast, which is kind of interesting. You can use that for like copying patterns to scrolls or slate, right? Whatever. We're not going to deal with that. We want to do a list, and you can kind of think of this like you would in, I guess, mathematics, where you do your closed brackets, or closed and open brackets, right? And that's just easy for me to remember, right? Because it kind of looks like a closed and open brackets. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this symbol, and everything I draw after that isn't going to be input until I close off the bracket, right? So none of that's going to count until I close it off. And that's how we're going to input a list into the stuff. Of course, this is going to be a kind of interesting thing, right? Because if we screw something up, we have to start this whole process from the beginning again. So I'm going to clear the list. I'm going to drop a stack, and we're going to like define the stack, right? So we go by me, my position where I'm standing, and then the direction that I'm looking at, and then we're going to take those two coordinates and then do this sign. I forget what it's called, but essentially that will define the entity that I'm looking at, which is what we need for the spell to work. The next thing we're going to do is then do open bracket, and now we can input the list of the things that we want to do. And the spell that we want to do is create an explosion of, let's say, level 10, right? At the direction at the block that we're looking at, right? So we're going to start with me where I'm standing, and then me where I'm looking, and then we're going to do this sign, which is the block that I'm looking at, and then at that block that we are looking at, we want to do a power level of, we'll just draw it down here. I forget how this goes. I think it's turned left is 1, is 5 rather, and then we turn left again, we'll go 10, which should be the max level explosion, and then we do the explosion symbol, which will be this dangerous looking thing, and then we're going to go closed bracket. Then after that, we need to do the crafting trinket symbol, which is going to be this weird thing that we looked at before. Okay, and then see here we got a problem, right? Because I made it in the wrong spot, so I didn't actually have the space to do the entire symbol, so you can kind of backtrack where you were to get yourself a bit more space so that you don't accidentally make the wrong thing and then have to redo this entire line again. So then we're just going to come down here and do the trinket sign, which looks like, oh, not that, that, bang. And now we have a trinket that contains the spell explosion of a level 10. Let's grab a bunch of amethyst, because this is going to cost a lot. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to chop up these last 252 blocks really quick off camera, because then I'll show you how to recharge this item, because I think if you remember, it has a base cost of something, and then for every number over, I think it was 3 of an explosion, it costs extra amethyst. So this trinket has only got an internal buffer of 64 amethyst shard, which is going to run out pretty quickly. So we're going to take a bunch with us just so we can recharge it at least once and kind of show off how that works. Okay, so I've chopped up the entire stack of blocks. I'm now going to run kind of far away. Let's go to like over here in the mountain. We'll just add a random waypoint, purple one. We'll go there, because this is going to be a fairly big explosion and I don't exactly want it in the middle of my base. We'll do it sort of far away. Now as well, if we remember the spell explosion, we'll read the entry in a moment, but it doesn't damage me, I don't think. It's not going to hurt me, it's just going to destroy all the blocks in a given area. Okay, so we're kind of over here. Now let's read up what we did. So we are casting explosion at the spot that we are looking at. Patterns, spells, basic spells, explosion. Explosion at the given power. A power of 3 is about as much as a creeper's blast. A TNT blast is about 4. We could not exceed 10, which is what we did. We went exactly to 10, right, by turning left with the numbers, which is number literals here. Yeah, right, so you do the sign, turn left adds 5, and then you add 5 again, which makes 10. So now we are going to do an explosion of 10 wherever we right click, if we made this item right, which I'm like 90% sure we did. So let's give it a shot and just stand here and right click. Okay, I don't think I did 10, so it might have defaulted if we read. I think I may have gone over. No, not that. We want to look at basic spells. There we go. It doesn't actually say here, which is interesting. The given power costs about 3 amethyst shards per point of explosion power. Except with fire. That's kind of cool. So we could have done fireball, which also sets things on fire as you right click. But we now have an item. Oh, there you go. Jesus Christ, that did a lot more damage. That kind of scared me. Yeah, so I guess it just kind of matters on what the blast resistance of the blocks you have are. So let's find a spot with dirt. And I'm going to turn the magnet back on so I don't have to run around and actually pick things up. Okay, we've got a spot here with dirt. Bang. Look at that. So now we have an item here that just does massive amounts of destruction wherever we decide to right click, which is kind of cool. So every time we right click, it's essentially going through and executing the entire I guess, spell list, which like we can do the same thing, right? So if I wanted to do that same sort of thing, if I want to look at that block, right, I can go here, which is me, where I'm standing, where I'm looking at, which is this phrase here. We're going to take those two coordinates and turn it into the block that I am looking at, given the direction and from where I'm standing. This pinpoints the block that I'm looking at. We want to then do an explosion of level 10, so we have to do, for that spell, we need a number, which is going to be left and then left, which is the max number of 10, right? And then explosion just takes the vector and the power, and then executes an explosion, right? So we're going to go bang, bang here, bang. And that did the exact same thing as the trinket. So instead of sitting here and having to draw that out every single time we want to do an explosion like that, we can just right click. And now my trinket is out of battery, which happens, obviously. I think if we had the, where is it, in here? If I had the artifact, actually, let's look at items. I think this will tell us. Casting items, right? The artifact, which is this one. This last one, right? Case costs a charged amethyst and a music disc. Are the most powerful of all. After their media is depleted, they can use amethyst from the holder's inventory to pay for the hex, just as I do when casting with the staff. Of course, this also means the spell might consume their mind if there's not enough amethyst. So if we wanted to avoid this, where it just doesn't cast it and continue using the amethyst in my inventory, we would have to have an artifact. But that's also expensive, and as much as I find this mod interesting, I don't think I'm going to play with it too much, because I think it's a tech mod disguised as a magic mod. Every time you do stuff with the staff, is you're coding, right? And like, you're not just coding in like a random language, right? That, like, let's say Lua, because like you have to use English words and things like that to execute code. In this, you're using symbols to execute code, which makes it even more difficult. So not only do you have to understand the language of like, let's say, how to cast a spell, right? But you also have to understand the symbol language, right? Like, this means me, the entity, instead of just writing me. If that makes sense? I don't know. So like, this is all just coding as far as I understand it, right? Like, I did not mean to make this sign. Like, why did that not work? But yeah, so this is just coding, right? This is, oh, come on. No, because I'm drawing it from the wrong spot. This is just coding, right? I could, fuck me. This is just coding. So it's taken me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 symbols to input the block that I'm looking at, right? So not only do I have to remember, like, this is what I wanted to do, which is the block that I'm looking at, but I also have to remember these 5 symbols to make this phrase, which is just painful. It's a tech mod disguised as a magic mod. And then not only that, like, you have to learn what vectors are and how those work, as well as dealing with like some intense mathematics and like number literals and things like this, like additive distillation. This is a symbol, right? Which takes a number, which is divided by a vector, and then another number in a vector, and then returns the sum of those. Why is that? Like, it's just painful, and then you have to write it out every single time, which, like, as cool as this is, I do not have the patience nor the intelligence to deal with it. Now, maybe the intelligence, I just don't have the time. It's like a lot of work. It's kind of cool, it's there, it exists, but for me it's like the same as computer craft. As cool as I find computer craft, I don't want to learn Lua. Like, it's just not what I wanted. Like, if I want to sit down and play Minecraft, I want to sit down and play Minecraft. I don't want to code. If I wanted to code, would I just not do that? But anyways, for those of you that are interested in this, I'll show you how to recharge this trinket, and we'll call it a day. Which is, if we go to items, I think this should tell us somewhere. I already know what the It's in the media in the battery is not consumed in chunks as it is when casting with the staff. Rather, the media melts down into one continuous pool. Thus, if I store a hex that only costs 1 amethyst dust worth of mana, the charged crystal used as the battery will allow me to cast it 10 times. Yeah, okay, that doesn't matter. There's a way that we can recharge it. Anyways, I know how to recharge it. It's kind of the same as crafting it. I don't know where it is in the book. I'm sure you guys can find it if you are that interested in it. But all it requires us to do is to pick this stack, which is what we are going to use to recharge the battery. We cannot, oops, not that, this. We can't charge the battery with anything more than it originally started with. So we are going to clear this. Fuck, god damn it. We're going to select the entity, right? So if we did this before, which is me, where I'm standing, the direction that I'm looking at, and then we are going to take those and then define the entity that we're looking at, which apparently I'm looking in the wrong direction. So we're just going to pick that up, redrop it, and start again. I'm going to try and look at somewhere that the game will find. And these are like the other headaches you have to start with, like, so you go through all of this, that's not what I wanted. And then it just returns null, and like it's like, oh cool, so you did all this thing, but none of it really works. So we've taken the stack, and now we are going to draw the recharge symbol, which is this funky looking star. Bang, and now we've recharged it. And we can cast Explosion again. It's kind of cool. Big explosion, we can make a really big hole in the ground. So that's how that works. I think that's pretty much as far as I'm going to go with this, unless there's like a particular item I really want to make with it. But insofar as this mod, I think I've reached my... There we go, auto attract enabled. I've reached kind of as far as I want to go with it. There are things in this book that we haven't unlocked, like obviously those are 2 locked. If we go to getting started, these 2 are locked as well, so there's something here that we just don't have access to, I think, unless we find something in world. And if we do find those things in world, I will play with it as well, but other than that, we could explode this creeper. Or it'll explode me. But yeah, we've kind of done some cool stuff with it. And there's obviously, if there's other spells that you wanted to do, you can figure out your way about how to do that. You just got to remember that this is essentially just a programming language built up off of signs rather than words and numbers and things like that. And mathematics is all done with different symbols. Why do you not let me? But yeah, I think that's a cool place to leave it for today. We had to play around with this. Next episode, I know I've said this a lot of times, next episode, we're going to move into a house. Without a doubt, we are going to move into a house because this is now getting ridiculous, just having everything out here in the open. I think we need a cozy place. We'll do that. I think I'm going to stop postponing that. And then probably while building, I'm going to get distracted myself and play around with some more mine colony stuff because I'm a fan of how this is progressing. Just some final thoughts on Hex as well. I think I don't want to disparage it. It is a very cool mod. Like, don't get me wrong. It is extremely interesting and like extremely powerful. I think, like with even just like these basic things that we have access to, I think you can do some extremely cool things. Like even these, just like being able to add like different potion effects to entities and things like that. It's cool. It's just not where I want to put my time. It's a cool mod, just not for me. Like like as far as I can see, it has the potential to be very powerful, and like you can use this for mining, by like using this and then using sentinels and like create like casting explosion on the sentinel, and then after a cast explosion, you can send the sentinel forward, I don't know, 3 blocks, and then do the same thing, and you can tunnel bore with it. But that's a lot of coding that you have to do with this weird interface that, like I said, I personally don't want to put the time into it. Behind the scenes, this took me like, I don't know how long. Let's see. I'll tell you how long. We're going to check on the testing world. We'll be back. Okay, so here in the testing world, as you can see, I was playing around with my trinket, right? It does the exact same thing that the other one did. You can see this one here as well in my inventory. Let's quickly turn on creative. This world is pretty much just the same seed as my other world. It's just made for testing, I guess. I was like figuring out how mine colony works, and like I wanted to figure out how this works. So this is the other one that I made. Remember how I said I did one with overgrowth? Or apparently I didn't. I have the explosion one. Why is it not working now? It was working before. Can I go to this inventory? Maybe it's not working because I'm... Oh no, this is the different one. This is the one that does explosion on entities. Never mind. I must have gotten rid of the other item. But anyways, we wanted to look at the statistics of this world, because I haven't done anything in this world besides check on the mine colonies and play around with this thing. 2.23 hours. That was essentially 2.23 hours of me going through this, looking at the basic patterns, understanding how these kind of works, trying to wrap my head around what vectors are, as well as how to like pinpoint things like the scouts distillation, which lets us take 2 vectors and then return an entity, which is like, so where I'm standing, where I'm looking, and then returning the amethyst shard like we did before to actually craft the trinket. It's 2 hours. It should not take me 2 hours to like run over like a little bit of code like that, but it was like frustration of then going in here and being like, okay, I'm gonna do the symbol for me as a player. Oh wait, I started it in the wrong spot. I actually have to start it at the bottom. And like, what would happen to me would be like, I'd start it. See, like I can't even get it right now. I'd start it right, and I'd get, oh my gosh, what's happening with me? I'd get here, I'd get me, where I'm looking. Excuse me. I'd get the entity. It's going to return nothing, but whatever. And then I'd start the bracket, and then all of a sudden I'd go here and be like, oh god, I started this in the wrong spot. Everything that I did before, I have to now clear and then start that entire process again. Right, like, or like even like that, like if I'd accidentally do that, I'm just like, oh, right, just clear it, restart. And it happened to me a couple of times where I'd gotten through like the entire pattern up here, gotten to the closed bracket, and then I'd accidentally let go of left click early. And then all of a sudden I have to then go clear and do it all again instead of just being able to like somehow edit it. I'm sure there's I'm sure you can, like there is, if we look in the book, there is stack manipulation, but like swaps the top 2 iotas of the stack. Like, so like if let's say, I don't know, you had like a number, like there 2, and you accidentally want it, like you want the vector and then that's swapped, you can do whatever the pattern was, but now I have to go back and read it and then make sure I follow the same pattern, right? So it's going to be bang bang that, and now they're swapped. But every time it's just like rechecking this. Personally, for me, that wasn't, I don't know, I don't want to be disparaging, but I found it just kind of unintuitive for me, or just like I just didn't want to have to learn this like magical language and blah 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 to do what I could do with what's it called, CC tweaks or whatever, CC, to do what I could do with like turtles and things in computer craft, and actually just writing out code, which is something that I can sit here off camera and do, and then just be like, hey, here's the code that I did, here's my GitHub, you can download it if you want to put it in your game, blah blah blah. It's just, I don't know, not for me. Like I said, I think it's a tech mod disguised as a magic mod, which is cool. Like I said, it is potentially very, very powerful, but not for me. Anyways, that was with a lot of rambling. If anyone's still here listening to this, I'm sorry. And we'll see you all. Well, the music just stopped randomly. And we'll see you all on the next one. Peace.